This video is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Every great team starts with a strong foundation, and your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect what matters most so you can focus on winning today while planning for tomorrow. Whether you're just starting out your journey, building your dynasty, or ready to retire like a champion, Western and Southern has the right play for your life stage. Visit westernsouthern.com to get your free life insurance quote today. Western and Southern, built to win. All right, everybody, welcome back to the PFF NFL show. We got a special edition of the program here. We're doing a little one-off here for the Steelers-Texans wildcard games. The Texans were victorious. We had to give you the top fives and do a little review of this one just because it was Monday Night Football when it was after the main grade release show. Didn't mean that it could get away from our analysis. Dalton, how you doing, my friend?
Fantastic. Another Monday Night Football game in the books, the last one of the year. And look, after a really fun wild card weekend, we got, kind of a little bit of a dud here, kind of an ugly little slugfest defensively, which we thought we were getting, and then one team's defense just came out with a dominant showing late in the game. Yeah,
and obviously the Texans win this game big in the end, 30-6. I don't really think is reflecting of the game as a whole, but it was reflecting on exactly what happens when the floodgates open against this Steelers team, which the margin for error always felt so small. Let's look at the top 5 graded players that we had in this game for each team, starting with the Houston Texans. Wide receiver Christian Kirk, monster in this game, 92.7 overall PFF grade. Had to step up big with Nico Collins going out with a concussion. You just hope that he is okay as the playoffs continue to go on. Edge rusher Danielle Hunter with a 90.5. Offensive guard Ed Ingram with an 87.1. Will Anderson Jr. with an 86.8. And then linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair with an 84.0. C.J. Stroud on this one, not his best day. Frustrating day from C.J. Stroud, but obviously he'll take it with the win. 56.6 overall grade. On the Steelers side of things, safety Chuck Clark was their top graded player with an 89.1. Offensive guard Mason McCormick with an 83.0. Joey Porter Jr. a 79.3. Cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. a 76.2. And then edge rusher Nick Herbig rounding things out at number 5 with a 74.9. Aaron Rodgers in this game, if this was his last, a 57.7 overall grade. Dalton, what was your stat that told the story here for this game?
I think, once again, you just look at the superpower of this Houston Texans team. A 90 pass rush grade in this game as a unit, their highest of the season, and they've put up a lot of high marks. Aaron Rodgers, even with his quick release, was under pressure 43% of the time. You had the defensive touchdown, Sheldon Rankins recovering the fumble in the fourth quarter that really started to put this game away. Just another dominant effort from this Texans defensive line. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Sheldon Rankins, even a guy like Tommy Togiai in the run game, right? They just have so many legitimate threats. Danico Autry in limited work too. I mean, this is the matchup that scares you the most. It does not matter who they're playing. It'll be New England this coming week. It could be Denver or Buffalo the week after that. They have great offensive lines, and you really feel like no matter what the matchup is, this is the equalizer. This defensive line dominated this game. Danielle Hunter with 6 pressures, Will Anderson with 5 pressures, and Aaron Rodgers, even when he wasn't pressured, you could just feel that he was feeling it in the pocket, right? He just was stressed out in there, and he needed to get rid of the football. And honestly, his receivers weren't getting open enough either on the back end against a really good secondary. But to me, all of the pressure that this front four causes, you saw it in this game, and you saw the way it took over this game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the pass rushing stats here from those two stars, Danielle Hunter, 91.6 pass rush grade. He had 30 pass rush reps, got a sack in there. Those 6 total pressures, like you mentioned, a 23.3% pass rush win percentage. Will Anderson Jr., 87.1 pass rush grade on 27 pass rush reps, had a half a sack himself, had 5 pressures, and an 18.5% pass rush win percentage. He also had, he was part of that fumble of Aaron Rodgers that Rankins picked up and took into the end zone, which really started the avalanche that was, I think, the final score that we saw in this game. Will Anderson, he's been having such a great year. I said this on Twitter last night. Outside of Myles Garrett having a record-breaking season, Will Anderson Jr. would have been very, very deserving of that award for Defensive Player of the Year. He has been unbelievable, certainly as a pass rusher, but what he has been in run defense as well, how he has really stepped up, and obviously the duo that he is with Danielle Hunter. There's just not many, if any, teams that really can handle this Texans pass rush, or I should say neutralize it's a better word, because handle is basically all you can hope to do against this unit. There's not really going into a game plan against the Houston Texans and saying, okay, we're going to totally stop Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. That's not really realistic. You basically just have to deal with it. You have to try to get them off of your heels, and you have to just try to have a game plan where they're not teeing off on you on those 3rd and long or obvious passing situations, because when they do, this is the result, and you really struggle with it. My stat that told the story was the Steelers on money downs. 2 for 14 on 3rd down, 2 for 3 on 4th down, over 2 in the red zone for the Steelers. This is a team that all year long we have talked about the fact that, yes, it can work. Yes, obviously they won enough games to win the division and get into the playoffs, but their margin for error was always so low. And if there was like one little part of their game plan that wasn't working optimally, it's almost as if the whole thing just was not good enough to win football games at an NFL level, especially against a high-caliber team like the Houston Texans. You know, I wanted to ask you this. The game plan for the Steelers in this game and just the entire season was so much, it was so based around the quick game and Aaron Rodgers winning pre-snap and the ball getting out of his hands so quickly. And it was a lot of slants. It was a lot of screens. It was a lot of, okay, it's a 3-step drop, and maybe I'm passing it 10 or more yards down the field, but I'm doing so in like a looping throwing motion where a guy's really running under it. I'm not sitting there reading the pocket and then firing it in there. I felt as though the last couple of weeks of the regular season, and then even in this game, when they knew they had to push it down the field, I think Rodgers still has something left in that arm. I don't think this arm is totally shot. I don't think we're talking about a late-stage Drew Brees or Peyton Manning or Kirk Cousins situation with Aaron Rodgers. I know that there's a chance that this could have been his last game simply because of his age and how long he has played, and it's his 3rd team now. Obviously, it didn't work out with the Jets, and I think that maybe it's his last game. But if you went on just how much strength he still has in his arm, I'd tell you Aaron Rodgers has another year left, because when this game got to the point where it was out of hand for the game plan they usually like to play, I felt like he was trying to throw it deep downfield. I felt like he was slinging it. So at that point now, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of what we talked about, what was it, 2 weeks ago, last week, where you go, okay, well, he's kind of saved his arm for this point. I don't know how much he was involved in the game plan week to week with, or maybe at the beginning of the season with Arthur Smith, basically saying like, hey, this is kind of how we want to run it. This is how I want to run it. But again, the last 3 weeks that I watched Aaron Rodgers, I think he's still got something in that arm. And I think he could play another year. I don't know if he mentally wants to play another year, but I think physically he could do it.
He could physically do it. There's enough velocity left in the arm to do it, but over the last few years, he has gotten less accurate on those downfield throws and less accurate over the middle of the field. So it's not that he doesn't have the juice to at least attempt those throws. It's that it's just not quite as precise as it used to be. And the difference between this version of Rodgers and the MVP version of Rodgers we used to see is he's not as mobile, and he can't handle this sort of collapse in the pocket that he was consistently getting in this game. He can't handle that anymore, and he doesn't throw it. The one part where the arm has diminished a little bit is the ability to throw off platform, right? He cannot throw off platform like we're used to seeing. Because remember, before Patrick Mahomes came in the league, there was people calling Aaron Rodgers the most gifted thrower of the football of all time because of the way he could just snap his wrist and throw it from any platform. Absolutely, between him and Mahomes, and we've got even a couple other competitors currently in the league for that. But I think when you look at Rodgers, it is a little more stagnant than it used to be in the pocket. His feet have to be set. He has to have enough space in the pocket. And against a team like this, he just doesn't get those opportunities enough. So you're right. Is there enough arm still in there to be an NFL quarterback? Sure. But when you look at the end of this season and you go, one of the lowest average depth of targets in the league, right? He's a conservative passer, much more so than he used to be. He really only takes his shots when he gets those one-on-one press looks on the outside, right? And this Steeler team does not have some great depth of receiver, right? But also a 68.8 passing grade points to a relatively average quarterback when you look at the full volume of this season. He can be that, for sure. He can be the 18th to 20th best starting quarterback in the league, which is amazing considering he's 42 going on 43 years old. but it's not going to get you over the hump against a defense like this. So you're correct. Sure. If he wanted to play another year,
I think he can.
He could be a competent quarterback.
Yes,
in
that's pretty much what I'm saying.
In the same vein, a little bit better, but in the same vein as the same reason Joe Flacco keeps hanging around, right? Where he's clearly competent enough to be.
He's better than Flacco,
He's better than Flacco, right? But he's competent enough to be out there, sure.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get, I think we've known this for a couple of years now since he tore his Achilles, you're not going to get the same MVP version of Aaron Rodgers we used to get.
Totally.
He's a functional starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's been that for most of this season, conservative as he may be, but he's been that. He can still run an offense. I mean, in the same way that, Phillip Rivers came in for the Colts, and mentally he can just do things that most other quarterbacks can't do either. Rodgers has that. He's a savant of the game. But at a certain point, especially against a defense like this, and I think this was a theme we saw throughout the rest of the weekend, guys like Matt Stafford and Caleb Williams and Josh Allen. In these moments against elite defenses, you have to have the ability to consistently make plays outside the pocket, especially in the case of Allen and Williams, outside the pocket, and just the ability to consistently make special throws. Rodgers isn't really able to do that now off platform like some of those guys are.
Sure,
so it is different than it used to be. But you're not wrong at all. If he wanted to play another year, he could certainly function for another year in the NFL.
I just think about those names that you mentioned, like obviously Rivers, Flacco, again, Kirk Cousins. You think back to what Peyton Manning was in his last year, what Drew Brees was in his last year. I think Aaron Rodgers has more in his arm than all of those names that I just mentioned at this stage of their career. So that's why I was saying, if he wants to do it again, I think that he can do it again, and it's not like it's like a walking corpse out there. Like, oh boy, okay, this guy's not going to be able to give us anything. I still think he can give you a little bit, but is it Super Bowl caliber? Probably not.
And at the end of the day, that's really, I think that kind of embodies the Steelers franchise right now as a whole, right? Of we know what Rodgers is. Mm-hmm. This is probably the furthest he can bring them, realistically, if he were to come back, right? I don't think they're getting any further than likely this spot, which is now 6 in a row.
I think they can get to winning a playoff game in a divisional round, but that's about as far. Because I'll talk about why. Okay, this is a good transition actually. Most disappointing for me in this game was the Steelers defense. Steelers defense was incredibly disappointing for me in this game. And specifically, it was against the run that I thought that they were terrible. You got to be way better against the run here in this game. C.J. Stroud had a couple of throws where it felt like he was trying to give you the game. C.J. Stroud was not seeing the field very well for a good portion of that game. But what was saving the Texans was actually their run game. Who says that about this current Texans team? Nobody. When you look at last night, the Texans, 83.2 overall team rushing grade just from the running backs. I just looked at their running backs. That's the second highest single week that they've had this season. EPA per rush, 0.206, second highest by a mile. The number 3 on the list, the third best EPA per rush, is barely above a 0. So this was by a mile one of their most efficient games. It was actually only 2 that existed this year. They had the second highest yards per carry average of their season at 5.5. And here's the kicker. The highest, the best, the most yards before contact average of any game that they have had this year. That was a disappointing thing about the Steelers. And you talked about how that game was kind of in a positive spinning way, a defensive slugfest, a real throwback game, as they say. Low scoring, the offenses were pretty dang bad. The Steelers had an opportunity, I think, to have the lead for the majority of that game, but the Texans ended up controlling the ball, controlling the time of possession, and moving the ball the way that they needed to on the ground, which basically every other team in the league has stopped them from doing. And the Steelers weren't able to do it last night. So I mostly agree with what you're saying. I think that in most realities, if you sim a season 100 times, the Steelers, in their current form, probably do not get past the wild card round. But I actually think for as poor as the Texans played in their passing game last night, that was actually one of the realities where they should have maybe gotten to the divisional round and beat them, but the defense was not what it needed to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's 2 ways of looking at this too, especially with a lot of the errors the Texans had in this game, the 3 turnovers in the first 3 quarters. The Texans could have probably won this game 30-6 in a different way, or maybe even worse, in a different way before the two defensive touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But also, the Steelers all year were so good at taking advantage of other teams' turnovers, right? At one point in this game, they were winning the turnover battle 3-0, but off those 3 turnovers, they only scored 3 points. And when you look at they didn't even move the ball at all after those 3 turnovers. I'm looking right here, 3 plays for 5 yards, 8 plays for 4 yards, 8 plays for 23 yards. So you're talking about 19 plays for, I believe this is 32 yards that they ran after the Texans had 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
The Steelers all year, one of the biggest determinants of them winning or losing has been the turnover margin. They won that, and they won it big early, and they weren't able to take advantage. That's something they've done all year. But that, again, is just a credit to the Texans' defense just constantly stepping up. I think, honestly, at this point, with the 3 turnovers, with as poorly as Stroud played in this game, the Texans' defense offers so much margin of error. And that's such a different element than any other team in the league has. I think the only other team with this that can overcome that many mistakes from their offense and still win a ball game right now is probably Seattle. We've seen them at least come close or even do that a few times this year where their defense is just so good that Sam Darnold can get away with mistakes like that. I think those are the 2 best defenses in football. I think it's Houston and Seattle, and any week you're playing those 2 teams, that's actually your biggest problem. How in the world do we score enough points on these teams? And especially with Houston, how in the world do we block this team? Because even if you are now New England, 5th in the league in pass blocking grade, but you got a rookie left tackle, you got a veteran over there at right tackle and Morgan Moses. Those 2 guys are going to be tested big time. It's going to be their biggest test of the year. And then even after that, if Houston advances beyond that, Denver's got a great offensive line. They've seen it once. They played a tight game. Buffalo's got a great offensive line. Houston won that game with Davis Mills. Not an easy task for either of those 2 even to block this Houston team. That's the biggest part to me, is they offer so much margin of, and this offense is not perfect. And they may not be playing this next game with Nico Collins because he got the concussion late, which would be very tough, but they offer you that margin of error. They drag you into those slugfests, and eventually, like you mentioned, the floodgates open because you just, especially the second, when did the floodgates open to? You fall behind 2 scores on this team, game over. Just walk off. It's not happening.
Anything else on this one before we wrap it up?
Most impressive, real quick, how about Christian Kirk? How about having the best game of his career in a stage like this? With the offense struggling, with C.J. Stroud struggling, 8 catches, 144 yards, highest receiving grade of his career.
Nice.
I mean, and you've got so many guys, right? Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knowles, Xavier Hutchinson, any other Iowa State Cyclone you can think of, too. And yet it's Christian Kirk, the veteran, who came through in this game with big plays when they needed him, just enough big plays when they needed him. And the Texans, look, they moved the ball well. They had over 400 yards of total offense. It's just the turnovers and some of the fundamental errors in the backfield they need to clean up. But I think that's something that DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caley look at their offense and go, hey, if we clean this up, we win this game a little smoother 30-6.
Right.
And we could beat anybody 30-6 with the way our defense is playing. Just don't give the football away. If we don't have any turnovers, look, if you're daring opponents to go 80 yards on this defense, you're probably winning that battle.
You are. Fun. It was a very fun wild card weekend. I know it started with the high flying, but even down to the end, it was 2 teams that were gutting it out, and that's just the story of the playoffs. So we've got 4 fantastic playoff matchups coming up for you on Wednesday's preview show, 1 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the YouTube channel. See you guys then.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff. Because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.